So welcome to University Technology Support Center, UTSC. We're your partner in supporting students. I'm Lauren Dubois, and I am the Director of IT for UMA, University College, and I lead UTSC, and I also lead the Strategic Roundtable team for University Services IT. And so, yeah, I have been here for 35 years, and I value customer service as the most important service that I can bring to the faculty and staff and students.
My name is Floyd Goodell. I'm the manager of the Technology Support Center. And prior to my time with the university, I spent time in many call centers in many different capacities, from frontline agent to various management positions. Most recently, prior to the university, was Fairpoint Communications. I was with them before the Verizon acquisition and after. So I bring that background and that experience to this venture. I started here with the university just a few years ago. I actually started as an online agent. And my primary goal with the Technology Support Center is not only ensuring top-level customer service, but really trying to transform these distributed help desks into a first-class call center.
Hi, my name is Stan Mozensky. I'm manager of service management and communications here at UMA. I work pretty closely with Floyd and Lauren. Basically, I handle a few different roles. I oversee a few IT technicians here on campus that support the UMA Augusta campus. I also have quite a bit of, behind-the-scenes work with the ticket tracking system that we use to run UTSC, which is Request Tracker, involved with some of the user-level administration tasks coupled with that. And on also some IT communications pieces relevant to the UMA community, and some involvement with IT communications at the UMS level as well.
So we've developed a brief presentation to describe what UTSC is and give you some steps we've taken to improve UTSC. And this is going to take about 15-20 minutes, so there's plenty of time for you to ask us questions. Could we just go around the room real quick and give your name and the campus you're from so we really know who we're talking to?
I'm Peter Traslar. I'm a learning designer from the University of Southern Maine, and I had a little bit bigger role last year before there was the shift to the centralizing, where we served as the Tier 2 Blackboard support. So
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to get to meet you all in person.
Okay.
Nicole Vinyl, I work at the law school.
I'm Dick Thompson. I'm the Chief Information Officer, and I work with Lauren and everybody else.
Jason Back from the University of Maine and the Hutchins Center, and I know I spoke with several of you on the phone many a time.
Dwayne Schumer, Royal Campus.
Andre Struggle, Faculty Development Center, UMaine.
Linda Schofield, Distance Education Technologist, UMM.
Thank you. Stan's going to walk us through the handout real quick.
Okay, so the purpose behind the handout really is to just briefly highlight the methods that you have to contact the University Technology Support Center. So there's a couple of different methods, and obviously, yes, the phone is in fact still our most common method of contact. So we've listed the phone number on here. And of course, you can also send an email with a question to techsupport@maine.edu. However, depending upon what your situation is at the moment, what kind of device you have with you, etc., you can also start to enter your own ticket using helpdesk.maine.edu. And I actually wanted to briefly call your attention to the screen up here. We'll just briefly show you what's involved with entering a ticket that way if you haven't done so. I don't know, perhaps some people have, perhaps no one has, but it's easy enough. You can actually navigate directly to that URL with helpdesk.maine.edu. And we can go through that in a second. But I was going to say, alternatively, it depends. I know there's different levels of how much the portal is used around the system, but if you use the portal and go into it, you can access our UTSC area through the Launchpad, this first icon right here. And the reason I'm bringing you in there at the moment, as you can see, that actually looks fairly similar to this contact sheet we have here. But there's a link in here to click where you can actually get to the self-help ticket entry. Which obviously it has not been done from this machine previously. So actually we'll skip that for now, and go right back to the URL where I have actually already navigated into it. But I also wanted to call attention to the second item after that self-help ticket entry is this customer satisfaction survey link. which is a 5-question survey. If you have had any exposure to the UTSC and you want to comment on it, you can click on that link and go ahead and respond to the survey. There is one other shorter survey which you might get if you have had a ticket and you've been the requester of the ticket. When that ticket is resolved, you also get a link that says you can respond to a survey, which is a 2-item survey, which is a little bit shorter and slightly different. But this one you can input at any time. So going into creating a ticket, basically because it's linked through CAS, you're getting your UMS ID is already pre-filled here for you. So you're indicating what you're submitting a ticket about, something like that. And you'll note the bold area which says please include contact information in the description. Obviously that's one of the most important points, because if you submit a ticket and you haven't included a phone number or something like that, we may not be able to contact you. So let's say all right, so my typing is not great at the moment. We'll even call it walking, whatever, close enough. So,
It's just an example of how it's not working. It's really a keyboard issue.
Right.
well, actually, I use one of those I use an ergo. Well, true enough.
Come on, take it.
But my response
your
is
phone, take it.
I use an ergo keyboard, so this one doesn't quite fit me normally here. This is not going well. But
My keyboard doesn't fit would have been the proper.
yeah, okay, exactly. And if there is a location with it that you can cite, that is always also helpful to fill that information. Then you just create ticket requests and the ticket has been submitted. So it's quite easy to submit a ticket and get it into the ticket system yourself to get the ball rolling. And the last item that was on the sheet that I also wanted to talk about was the survey. And so here you can see there's just a text box where you can offer any commentary and also some of your perceptions about how your experience has been with UTSC. So now we're going to turn it over to Lauren to talk about vision.
So UTSC is the primary point of contact for all supported products and services, and we resolve or facilitate the resolution of all issues and requests. We own the life cycle of the ticket, so it's our job to talk to the techs and to the people we make the ticket to make sure that they're following up. And so we work really closely with the rest of the IT organization to get your ticket resolved. I'm done.
I wanted to also talk a little bit about purpose, the whole idea behind UTSC. I think sometimes, I've heard some comments from people about, things worked well in the past when we had our own campus support. And so the question becomes then, okay, so why has UTSC been created as an overall enterprise-wide service desk? And there's two primary factors that I think are involved with that. One, of course, is to improve service for everybody. And the second major goal also has to do with cost reduction. I mean, everybody knows about that in these trying times. We're trying to reduce cost essentially. But so as far as improving service, one of the major real advantages that we see related to having multiple help desks is the fact that you've now blended multiple staffs of help desks together. So you have this larger staff, because calls obviously being shared. You can call a number and get a representative at some other campus, which in the case in the past where you had fewer representatives at each campus, if you only had one or two people and somebody was on vacation, that one person might be running all over the place and not be able to get back to you right away. So the chances of getting a person when you call in are substantially increased as a result of having all of these staffs blended together. So that's like a win right there. The other things that come into play really have to do with specialization. In the past, every campus help desk had to be knowledgeable about every single topic, or at least their IT technicians had to. So part of the goal here is to say, okay, can we reduce redundancy and have specialists in various functionalities so that you can have a handful of people that are real experts in the topic that they're dealing with, rather than everybody having to be a generalist about every single topic. So that right there is another significant goal behind it. Also, as USIT continues to move forward, we're also trying to move in the direction of standardization of services so that you wouldn't have multiple email systems. I mean, obviously, there's probably still always going to be a small amount, but I think there's a really crazy number of email systems out there right now, and it's difficult to support that. So as we move forward and standardize our services, which is one of the goals, it's going to also be much easier for the standardized help desk to support those services. So therefore, you know, you can be on any campus and hopefully get help from another campus without a problem. And I think that one other item that's one of my personal ones that I like to kind of joke about a little bit and think is kind of good is the fact that we also, you know, there's a lot of students now that are getting some like real world experience within, you know, working on this help desk because they're getting exposure to different campuses and different ideas and having to think on their feet and stuff like that. So it's almost a little bit of like a real world training experience for students having the enterprise help desk. So that's about it for that topic.
So I am going to have everybody jump in our DeLorean, and I'm going to take us back to when we first created Technology Support Center this past summer in August, over the summer of 14. And to meet the vision and the goals that Stan and Lauren just talked about, we created initially, the goal was one distributed call center. So, you know, one call center, but physically separated out over different locations. And how we accomplished that was by getting all available agents that were part of this initiative into a common phone system, using as many common tools as we can. And we identified a few hurdles out of the gate. One was we needed to gather all the knowledge from the various locations we'd be getting. And early on into that information gathering process, we really identified that we were most likely not getting everything we needed to be successful. So we immediately adapted in the planning process and created a situation where we would offer calls to a local campus first. And if that local campus wasn't able to pick up, rather than achieving the true goal of one distributed call center, we funneled all of those calls to one location. That location was here. And the reason we did that was with intent of helping that information gathering process, rather than creating a situation where we were chasing down leads and questions from 7 different locations. We funneled all, I don't know how to handle this type questions, to this location so we could more effectively gather that question, get an answer, document, and move forward. Using this mechanism, we were able to extend the hours at every campus, or extend the hours for most campuses, without increasing staff, without increasing equipment. We were able to leverage different locations, pre-existing operating schedules, to create a larger, more redundant system for all involved that allowed us to stay open during individual campuses' weather closures, provide weekend hours and hours past 4:30 for some campuses, which had never had that, all while maintaining the budgetary goals and that we all really need to think about in this industry at this point. Lauren?
So we faced some challenges in the beginning when we started out. Nothing is really standard, and every campus is really different. And we received varying levels of documentation from the campuses. So not only were we not told what types of calls to expect, but we were not given much information on how to resolve those calls. So, as Floyd just said, in September, the calls all came to the Augusta location, and that was our choice because we wanted to learn what kind of calls were out there. We immediately learned that when a dorm student arrives on campus, the first thing that they want to do is register their Xbox or their smart TV or their PlayStation. We didn't have the tools to do that. We didn't have the knowledge to do that. So we quickly jumped into action, got that training, got that knowledge, got the tools. But what that proved to us was that there needed to be a self-registration tool for those Xboxes and game things. So in the middle of September, a team was developed, and the team consisted of mostly somebody from UMPI, UMaine, and Farmington, who wrote this self-registration tool, which we put into place for January when the students came back with their holiday gifts because a whole bunch of new units arrived. And that self-registration tool now eliminates hundreds of calls coming into the support center. So that's an example of how the campuses are working together in IT to develop things. I'm being told now from those campuses that have the dorms, all the rest of the others, that they have wanted that tool for years. and never got it. So that's an example of how this worked out. We have some plans. We have put some plans in place, and Floyd's going to tell you about the rest of the plans.
All right, so I'm tempted to use another Back to the Future metaphor, but our current status is what we kind of jokingly refer to as Phase 2. We are, like the rest of our world that we exist in, constantly changing, constantly striving to improve. So we identified what did and didn't work from the scenario that I described earlier. The first thing we did was, having gathered a certain amount of information, we decided that it was time to realize the one distributed call center goal. So we changed the routing from all calls that didn't get answered at a local level only coming here to calls that didn't get answered at the local campus first going to the next available agent regardless of where they are in the state. Really, in essence, creating a distributed call center. To manage that call flow and make sure that calls that really needed a priority, a professor standing in front of a classroom, someone with a video conferencing issue, someone with a ITV issue, which again entails someone standing in front of a class, had a significant priority, we instituted a phone tree. And that allowed users to, at the front of the call, identify, yes, I have a video conferencing issue, I have a ITV issue. We initially actually had the menu item specify an urgent classroom issue. We later changed that because we found that students stopped at the word urgent, and we were getting non-urgent requests coming into this, trained group of specialists. So we went with a slightly different wording. That allowed us to focus those calls to a group of folks that have been trained in video conference software, have more exposure to the ITV product, and understand the urgency of if a professor calls up and says, this piece of my classroom is not working. So we continued to, during this current state, identify where our shortcomings were. What we found was that even though we had gathered a large pool of information in our first phase, we still had a varying level of expertise among our agents. As Stan alluded to, the majority of our agents are student workers, and that's an excellent, very appropriate component for a university help desk to employ students. However, there are varying levels of skill there. So we needed to come up with a way to share information, really be able to pull the information across. We had been using a knowledge base, a common knowledge base platform that the university system uses. It very clearly wasn't getting the entire job done. So what we also did was leverage a chat program. Think early 90s chat room. And it's just one room where all of our agents can log in. Agents from, or staff members from any other organization can log in. And it provides a really easy virtual room where someone can, in essence, throw their hand up and say, geez, I have a problem with this, who knows how to help? So while the agent is talking to the customer, maybe having them hold for a brief minute, they can pop into this tool and say, geez, anyone on from USM? And we've been able to create a situation where anyone from our agents for UTSC that are in USM to Stephen Hauser has jumped in and said, yeah, this is how you do that, or here's who needs to speak to that. And of course, on the backside, we work to capture that information so it's not always a raised hand in the air. And that's been making a measurable impact in the quality of service that we're able to deliver to folks. So as I mentioned, we're always striving to improve, so where we're at now is not our final goal. We're planning for, by the end of next month, to implement what we've logically kind of nicknamed Phase 3. And this is a goal that's going to serve a few purposes. The first is to address a trend that we've seen and been working to resolve, and it kind of ties back to what I was just speaking about. We want to eliminate a situation where someone calls in and they get something akin to "I don't know" when they ask a question. And keeping that in mind with respect to the different skill levels, what we're going to do is tweak that phone menu so that it's much briefer. We front-loaded a few helpful messages on the current menu, but that ended up extending the time of the menu. So what we're going to do is a very simple phone tree where you literally get prompted with, "Are you a student? Welcome to the University Technology Support Center." Students press 3, staff and faculty press 2, urgent video and ITV problems press 1. And then we're going to use a technology called skills-based routing to route those calls accordingly. So we're going to have our student workers addressing student questions. Our staff and faculty and our staff partners at other organizations will address staff and faculty questions, and that same group of core trained video conference and ITV specialists will not only share duties with the staff and faculty queue, but they'll be looking after the ITV and video conferencing questions. So this is going to increase our quality of service. The technology itself allows for a great deal of flexibility, so we'll be able to reward an extremely skilled student and promote them in essence to helping out with staff and faculty calls. By the same token, in the fall, when we have just an incredible crush of people that are just looking to get simple activations, we can reach out to not only our own staff members, but staff members from outside organizations that want to help out and donate their time for a week. We can pop them into the student queue and have them activate accounts. So this will really help us tie those pieces together, and certainly this is the next phase, but I wholeheartedly believe that there will be a phase 4 and probably even a phase 5. Lauren?
So we do resolve some issues well, student issues. So when the students call, we rarely get a complaint from a student that we didn't handle their issue. Because they're calling about Blackboard, Panopto, they're calling about something wrong, and so we can help them with that. There are 43 students working for us throughout the state, and they know how to handle the student issues because they're using those same applications. The account activation and the password reset, the UMS Main Street ID, we've all been doing that for years. We now can reset first class, group-wise, Adobe Connect, we can do that. ITV, we've been handling those calls for 25 years. We can do that well. And video conferencing was started here in Augusta, and so we have the, we can handle and resolve those issues. And we even have given video conferencing out to some of the staff. There's somebody at Fort Kent who he works from in the morning very early. He enjoys video conferencing, so it's empowering some of the other staff that they can have these other tools.
So just to piggyback on that, something I noticed that we missed, we've, in addition to sharing the video conferencing tool, we've actually shared the user ID manager tool so that we've been able to spread that tool to groups that might be closer to students at key points. For example, here on this campus, I've done some training with the registrar's office so that they can now create an activation code, whereas just 2 weeks ago they were a customer of that service, having to either refer the student to another party to get activated or looking through a back-end system to get it that was generated automatically. So we've been able to leverage our successes for other departments' wins as well. So I just want to kind of briefly, and I think with this particular audience, this is probably things that you all already know, but I wanted to just kind of briefly say that here's what we've done well. There are just a few things that this was, like I said, mainly aimed towards faculty members, so forgive me if this all is common sense for you. For anyone that teaches an ITV course, here at this location, we actually provision the course and link that course to Panopto. When we do that, we try and wait as close to the start of the semester as possible. But when you do a course copy after we've done that, it will actually break that link. If it's not done, there's a simple checkbox that needs to be unchecked. So I just wanted to throw a reminder out there that if you're going to do that, please see an instructional designer so that they can just make sure that you're not overwriting that link. And one of our top 3 common calls at the start of a semester is, I can't see my course in Blackboard. So if faculty members, if at all possible in their schedule and in their plan, could make the course available prior to the start of the semester, it would really cut down on a number of traffic. And kind of in that same vein, we actually do not reset exams for academic integrity reasons, we direct those calls back to the faculty members. So if at any point you're encountering that situation, it's, we'll certainly take the call and we'll do our best to help the customer, but in reality what that is saying, well, geez, you really need to contact your professor. So if you're ever in a situation where you're tempted to send that call to us, we'll certainly take it and do our best, but it would be more efficient for the student to send them straight to the professor. And then just the ever-popular Blackboard question. If you come across a random Blackboard question, makes its way to your ears, please ask, are you using Firefox? Have them try Firefox or whatever browser they're doing. Exactly, thank you. And Lauren?
So at this point, we want to open it up to any questions you may have of us.
I have a ton of questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Probably Floyd can answer this. What are the request tickets that you do not handle from faculty?
Okay, we're supposed to repeat the question.
Yes, yes. I'm just going to repeat everyone's question, or whoever gets the question will repeat the question because of the way the mics are set up in the room. So the question was, what are the issues from faculty members that we're not able to assist with? There are a number of issues. I would say the most common, readily identifiable trend with faculty member questions, staff questions, is the variety. I will say that staff members have to activate their accounts like everyone else, so obviously we do very well with those. Where we really go into trouble is really, it ties back to the non-standardization. When we get a question from a staff or faculty member that's highly campus-centric, if we haven't already captured that knowledge, it's a discovery process for us. So that's really where we are unable to immediately help. Now, certainly we have mechanisms that we will, document, escalate a ticket. Based on the urgency, we can escalate at different speeds. It's not that we can't address the issue, but it's more of a timeliness issue. And those are things that we look at. Really, we kind of take the trip on a crack in the sidewalk approach. Everyone's kind of stumbled, and the human instinct is to kind of break into a quick jog and pretend like you didn't stumble. We take the opposite approach. We stop, we look back at the crack, we see, all right, how can we fill this? How can we make this better the next time so we don't trip again? And that's really our approach to, in general, any issue that we can't readily resolve. Can we readily resolve it? If we can't, if that's not going to be possible in any situation, how can we escalate? How can we escalate more efficiently, most efficiently?
So if you...
A very similar question from faculty support Blackboard. On Blackboard, if you go to the homepage, it says everybody calls the centralized support center. You mean faculty call faculty development center. Okay. Why is that? And how do you handle, we get a lot of calls in our center for Blackboard related issues. Probably second or third tier questions. There are conflicts of student says that she took the exam, the faculty does not see. You need to go into the core of the server. How do you handle those calls? Because you are getting from other 5-6 campuses.
That's an excellent question. And for those calls, the question was how we address second or third level Blackboard questions from staff or faculty. How we address those is first a triage method. If it is something like Linda and I joked about, if it's a clear cookies and cache, different browser, we try and get any simple fix out of the way. If it does reach into grade center realm, academic integrity realm, course configuration, second or third level troubles, then we really rely on the instructional design, the faculty development support out there. We reach out to folks like Peter and Rucha and Marilyn and Greg on this campus, Ashley in Farmington, the list goes on and on. Linda, we reach out to Linda. So really at that point we take an escalation method.
Okay, thank
I could address for you the why the phone number is the way it is on the Blackboard homepage. That BB Core team has set that. Yeah. So okay. So if you want that changed, that you know where to head to. Okay.
It's on BB Core.
Oh, okay.
And first, I want to applaud you on the. I know this has been a major effort, and the amount of progress going from last year, where we're getting when Shane O'Hara left, and we abruptly had to take over for him. We were getting upwards of 30 to 40 tickets a week, Blackboard related tier 2, and then now it's something like 10 tickets a month. So it's really been a dramatic effort, and the extended coverage at USM has been amazing, and we really thank you for all the hard work on. So we do have questions about some of the one downside of not answering 40 tickets a week is we really had our fingers on the pulse of what was going on in our courses and where the issues were. Oftentimes, that was the only opportunity we were ever seeing courses, and we, it was sort of like a backdoor way of identifying, other areas that we could improve and course design, learning outcomes and things, because we were going in there to fix a technical issue, but it was more symptomatic of something, not just like a technical issue, but more things that could be adjusted to make the course run better, and it led to us contacting the faculty member. So since all this transition, we've kind of lost that pulse, and there's not any information coming back to us about how many people are calling you from USM, what are the tickets that you are resolving that we used to resolve as you've increased capacity, and how we could sort of create that communication loop where we're not just answering questions and then that's our entire involvement is just a little small fraction, so that we're also very excited to maintain our partnership, and as you grow, that we can increase our communication, maybe if it's more just with reports and a way that we can kind of use that information to improve our learning outcomes. So that's more of a comment.
I have a thought on that, and so what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you really benefited from that collaboration aspect, and that's decreased. What I would recommend, and certainly this is kind of a general recommendation, but you and I can speak about it individually, is I sort of alluded to it, but I don't think I mentioned it by name. We leveraged that 90s chat room. It's called HipChat. It's tied to our knowledge base provided by the same vendor. Anyone in UMS can access that. What I would see as one option, and this is option available to anyone, we would be able to get you a login to HipChat when you're available at your desk doing other things. You can have it running in the background. It can notify you with a little pop-up when things come in. It would give you a chance to see the flavor of what's going on, what questions are being asked, and for you, it would help you keep your finger on that pulse. But for us, it would help kind of tie back into Andre's questions, what we don't work well. It would provide us expand our room so that when we say, oh, geez, Blackboard question, maybe someone with more expertise than us would be able to, and then you'd have that extra in to go in and check out the course and see if is it symptomatic of something else. So that's one thought off the top of my head is to increase that collaboration in that way.
And certainly that aspect, I would welcome that opportunity. I mean, these days we're spread so thin that it would be like 5 minutes in between continuous meetings here and there just to peek in. But certainly just the reporting mechanism of just being able to connect the dots of where, if there are systematic problems, and then also are your techs connecting the dots as well of being like, oh, there's a new bug in Blackboard, how do we work that up the chain to the enterprise level of just being able to if it's just random people all addressing the same problem, or is anyone saying, hey, have you noticed that this function in Blackboard isn't working? So it's a little Blackboard related, but again, just I think with a lot of the folks in this room about this as we're moving more to a collaborative one university model, that I think we all would like to be included more in that and as a partner beyond just questions that your team can't address because you don't have certain access or things like that. So it's
Well,
just
two things. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to?
Can I just jump into that? It's a fabulous question, and I appreciate the response. One of the things, not just for Blackboard, but for other things, that we will benefit from is a bit of predictive analytics. And that's really what you're talking about. We're doing a little bit more by hand perhaps, by having either a view of hip chat or looking at the tickets, but we should be able to give you that data so that you can look down and see that. And over time, as we begin to invest, and we did this without having the resources, you know, typically got the resources, built it really well, and then moved your staff into it. Instead, we moved our staff into it and then tried to build it going forward because of the pressure of the cost savings we were getting. But we should be able to provide not only the analytics for you to look at that, but over time, add an engine to what we're doing with our ticket system, that we can provide some predictive analytics. So even before you notice that something big is happening, they're seeing it. If we're having a problem with the network, or you're having a problem with Blackboard, we frequently see it in calls first before something else. And we can just, you know, it doesn't take much to improve the quality of an experience by reaching out and telling the users, oh, we're having a problem, or putting a notice on that, oh, we've discovered this problem and we're going to fix it. A particular amount of time is an hour, those kind of things. So we're all thinking about that, but I appreciate you asked the question, and I bet we can find a way to share that data with you. I mean, they're collecting it because they have to report it to me.
So I want to show you that there is weekly call center stats out there that you can go look at. And it shows, if I click on it, Stan, it shows from which campuses the calls are coming from.
Yeah, this is, I mean, exactly the type of information. So, I mean, part of it is, I know it's all evolving, and new, but we're just very excited to see all this effort going forward, and anything that's all about improving capacity, quality, and how that can lead to improving retention, persistence, and all that. So it's really exciting to see this effort going forward.
Excellent.
Is there a way to filter the information you get from that chat thing so that I'm not getting everything from all campuses, just things that pertain to UMM? And is there a further way to filter it so that I'm just getting things that are distance related? Because I'm not part of IT, I'm distance focused. And so I deal with ITV, compressed video, and Blackboard issues. And the IT people deal with Main Street and computers. And although there is some overlap with computers and Blackboard, but, so is there a way to join that chat and filter what I'm getting so I'm not inundated with 2,000 calls that I didn't need to see?
It's a very good question. So the question was, in the HIP chat utility, is there a way to filter by content?
Or campus and then content.
Right. So yes and no is the answer. We do have the mechanism to create as many different chat rooms as we'd like. So we certainly could, and we actually do have a UMM campus service queue for more of the computing folks. There's nothing stopping us from making a UMM, distance learning room. And you could certainly, I'd be more than happy to do it, and you could certainly just be in that room, and then when we had a question like that, we could pop into that room and ask it. So yes, it exists. The no part of that question is the more rooms we add, the more danger we run of finding the room becoming its own hurdle. So we found that the collective piece of the chat is really what's the most beneficial. Getting all those different minds in the same space, and yes, we have.
So you could say, "Hey, Linda, this one's for you."
Exactly.
Okay.
And we actually has a tool where you assign yourself a short name basically, and kind of like a Twitter type thing. You could say at Linda Schofield, and it would pop up in a little blue box, so it's more eye-catching for you. And if you have different platforms, it could even trigger like a text and whatnot. There's a lot of power to the tool that we're really just beginning to experiment with. So that might be a secondary, not a true filter, but a way to leverage the tool so that you get the most out of it, and we all do, really.
So if that's something that, instead of monitoring, if we're just logged in and like I just sign in the same as your staff, but you could just tag us, so then, because oftentimes we will get incomplete information
Mm-hmm.
by the time we get a ticket, where our first response is to email, which course is it, what's your
Mhm.
ID, you said you had a quiz, where in the course was this quiz, and so if that chain of events, that we could get that information before
Mhm.
we're going back to the person and be like, oh, by the way, who are you again?
Mm-hmm.
And let's start the conversation over and get the information we need before we can even look into it.
Right.
And that dynamic, I think, would be a big saving. I mean, or having the form force you to fill in the contact info and the course ID or course name or anything like that, so that there isn't that second ticket isn't a follow-up about like, okay, we can't even address it until we know more information. And I think that could also be an area that we could talk more about.
I agree, and we've actually looked at different ways to create templates for the tickets, and obviously we spent a good deal of time training the staff and sending out reminders. Here's information you need to gather on a typical ticket. Here's specific information for this issue. But you touch on a really great point with the HipChat tool, is that instantaneous capacity, and really I couldn't have picked a better example in those cases that I kind of mentioned earlier, where I need, my exam's stalled, I can't do anything. In those situations where we're really going to point them back to someone, to have someone in the chat room at that moment in time gives us, or that person rather, gives them the ability to say, oh, yeah, okay, what is it? Where is it? What course? You can ask all those questions in very near real time. And of course, there's a ticket in the background for recording purposes, but it really takes those issues that are distributed amongst 3 or 4 people rather than a series of emails. You've got some very quick chats, and then everybody's off and running where they need to be.
And that's often how, like, usually it's a 5-minute fix, but it takes 2 days to get somebody.
Exactly.
That back and forth, there's always that, like, hours, and then finally you're able to resolve it, but then the customer is like, well, why did it take so long? And then, but just that, even that instantaneous response, like I try and respond to tickets the second I get them, even if it's like, I'll get back to you in an hour, but just that instant feedback and that concierge style.
That's excellent.
So I definitely think there's been at least a noticeable difference, and so we really are excited for.
Excellent, thank you.
We forgot to mention that we actually have a Blackboard course of our own that we put the students into that are going to work for us and the staff, and they have to go through our course and take the test at the end. The highest score was
A 100.
a 100. There's some that we have to, can you go back through the course again? Because some of the students, but yeah, we do training.
Maybe we'll borrow that example.
Marilyn helped us design the course.
And I apologize if I missed it. When do you think phase 3 is starting, or is that
By the end of June.
by the end of June? So I just wanted to make a comment too. From the law school's perspective, we've actually been able to really take advantage of this reorganization, I think, to our benefit. So we're excited about it. And the ability to do different permissioning things more, say, in-house or in our ugly round building has been tremendously helpful. So I just wanted to make that comment because it just,
Thank you.
it has helped us immensely as we're sort of pushing things and pushing our students and pushing our faculty. We've been able to be much more of a help desk sort of within our own facility. But to have access to more outside of even the USM campus has been great.
Excellent, yeah. I had Jeff York, who used to,
Right.
he actually reported to me, and I've worked quite a bit with Michaeline before and after Jeff's time with us, so it's really rewarding to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
So it's like if you hear of things that aren't being answered correctly, or if you have information for us, call Floyd. He will make documentation so that when the calls come in, we can handle them.
Can I ask a question of the group?
Sure.
One of the debates that's going on fairly regularly at various levels, I know Andre, I think, is involved in one of these, is what are the hours that we should provide? At what point do we say, because we're doing online and so many things, and students all over the world, when do we say we should have coverage 24/7? And then how do we do that? And I mean, there's diminishing returns, but I saw a report which Floyd and I were looking at yesterday about what's happening on a weekend during more business type hours. It's pretty substantial. So, and I will tell you that 2 years ago, we had the Blackboard problems at the beginning of the semester. I mean, just torturous. I was actually communicating with some students, and one of them who was so frustrated because we would bounce the system and Blackboard would give us another update at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. That was when he was doing something and wanted help and all of this stuff. So what are you thinking about that? I mean, is there a threshold point that we just have to bite the bullet and say?
I mean, 24 hours would be ideal, 7 days a week. I mean, we don't necessarily have the need for it, but I think we will soon as we're online is growing bigger, that I think that anytime call, but I know that might not be possible, but as soon as we can make it possible, I know everybody would agree that would be ideal.
Do we have student workers that are in other time zones, like in other countries, other time zones that we can
No,
avoid during
unfortunately.
those times?
An idea that
It's also access to sensitive information, you know, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
to find.
that's the problem with Blackboard support. After a certain point, once you get by the browser cookie cache level, for academic reasons, it's very tricky to grant a student the full level of access that those of us might have.
They complain to us, the ones who work on the Saturday and Sunday, that they'll get a call and they can't help because they don't have the admin access, but we can't give them the admin access.
Yeah. And it's a credit to them. They really want to help, and I can speak for every single agent in all of our locations that if a call ends with us saying, geez, you know, I can't get that done for you right now, but I'll put in a ticket, they walk away feeling bad from that. They're not, you know, they want to solve every problem that comes in the door. We've got a great group.
And evenings and weekends, I'm salaried, so I work this many hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I work on the weekends and in the evenings, I come in later the next day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people need to get going.
Mhm.
They need to
Yeah.
be kept
And
going, because
absolutely.
that's when they can work. They're working.
Absolutely. And you touch on a great point in that the other half of this is in a 24/7 environment, it's one thing to have the frontline agents available, but if it's an issue that we can't resolve, which there will always be some issues that we can't resolve, that 24/7 model implies that there needs to be some second or third tiers available at that same time. So that's a consideration, yeah, that's a consideration that needs to be added in.
That can give somebody help because you've made a determination that it's that serious.
Mhm.
For us, if nothing else, knowing that Blackboard was having a problem at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we should escalate it at 2 o'clock, not wait till we show up at 7
Right.
o'clock in the morning and say, whoops, Blackboard's not working the way it should.
And
We lose 5 hours.
and Peter, you kind
Well,
of
it is helpful to have those emails going out to students. Panopto's not working, Blackboard's not working. Panopto's working again, but Blackboard's
Mhm.
working again. That's very helpful.
and actually there's a dashboard that we can share out for those systems. But Peter, you touched on a great point where a lot of this growth is coming from on the online segment. A thought that I've had and I've mentioned in other circles is perhaps our 24/7 component might be better served at 24/7 email support as opposed to a phone piece. And that might touch on being able to leverage different higher tiered supports via an email prompt as opposed to, you know, being in a call center environment overnight. And that helps with, you know, with students and security concerns in buildings overnight and whatnot. So that's another option to keep on the table.
I know a lot of other schools have like a third-party tech support that, I mean, I wonder the idea of if they charge you by a number of tickets for like off hours, where if you only have 3 people calling, then maybe you don't need to pay for, that they can maybe like, because I know like even UNE has a company in Portland that does all of their, and they get 24-hour tech support.
They're
And everybody can answer every question as soon as they get it, and that level of, like, it really helps as for marketing purposes to be like, yeah, we're on it whenever you need us. Like, we'll be able to provide that. I know the reality, we can work towards that, or that may be down the road type of scenario as we have enough online students to be able to support it. But that could maybe be something of like, just like off hours, but there's still somebody who can answer at least, or get the information needed. So at 7 a.m. we can be like.
That's a fantastic idea that I know has been looked at a few times, and I don't know the specifics of those instances in this case, but I'll say in general that those services, you run into various pay obstacles almost inevitably that either that service turns into a glorified messaging service where the best they can do is say, well, we'll let them know in the morning, to getting to that point where they answer every question in a system as wide and varied as ours. That starts escalating that vendor's pay scale. So it's a fantastic, and I'm not trying to skew that in any way, but I'm just saying that there are,
Well, that's
there are definitely hurdles there involved.
Oh, yeah, we'll just turn that on and problem solve.
But how many public universities have 24/7 support?
Not very many. Not very many.
Not very many? I
I
think
don't know
for
about
tier 1 support, I don't think it's too expensive to organize 24/7. You can hire the same students around with phone calls to their cell phones. But tier 1, that's it.
Well, that's just it, yeah, and that's,
Access.
yeah. And then that's definitely possible to look at, and we've done, one of the great things about turning our 7 isolated help desks into more of a professional call center is we are able to track telephony data of, from 8 to 10, how many calls did we receive on average. And we actually leveraged that data to realize that even with just having students available, it just didn't make sense for us to stay open until 10 o'clock. So we're really moving from an anecdotal model into a really data-driven model where we can leverage all the various stats that are available and able to be pulled out of our phone system to make a more informed decision about topics like this. Does
So
anybody
are
have?
you here to tell us that we're done? No.
We are keeping an eye with respect to everybody's time. Anybody else have anybody that,
Thank you, I think it was very helpful. At least to me, it was very
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And always feel comfortable
Yeah.
to call us, write us.
The change in the fall was a royal nightmare,
Yes.
and it's working well now,
Excellent.
from my perspective.
Thank you.
I joked with my
So,
staff.
Thank you for making those changes.
I joked with my staff many times, and I still do whenever the topic comes up, that fall has always been horrible for all of us. And, everybody's falls
This was
on,
worse.
well,
This was
and
worse.
so the joke is now we know exactly how horrible it was. We have data and metrics to say, this is exactly how awful it was. And next fall we can find out, was it as awful, less, or more?
Peter, one last comment.
I can't imagine that it could be more awful next fall.
Oh, Linda, you just jinxed us.
One last comment with respect to your hours of coverage. I glossed over one item on the sheet, which I should have mentioned. We have the hours on here of 10 to 4, Saturday and Sunday. They're switching from 10 to 2 for summer session. And somebody might see that as a reduction, but no, that's actually a bonus because previously we did not have summer session hours. So this actually is an increase overall.
USM, we only had like an 8 till 4 Monday through Friday.
Right.
Up until recently, so anything beyond 4 p.m. at any day of the week.
They were quick to point that out when I got after them and said, why are you reducing hours?